you check the children. Show a little match sometimes.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes. That is what
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird.
And I'm Howling Fuego.
Fair enough. We are here to discuss a brand new feature. Well, it's been about a week and a half that it's been out now, you know. But we wanted to definitely get to it. I was very excited about this film. We did a trailer reaction to it. I don't know if you were part of that trailer reaction or not.
I'm not sure.
But
yeah.
either way, we are here to discuss the goodest of boys, Good Boy.
Yes.
Now, this is, if you hadn't heard, I don't know if you're watching our channel, how you wouldn't have. However, if you hadn't, Good Boy is the story of a dog that sees ghosts. So the conceit is this. Everyone that's had a dog has seen them stare off into a particular corner, seemingly staring at nothing.
I see it with cats sometimes too, man.
True.
Yeah.
So the question has always been, what if they could actually see ghosts? The conceit of this film is, what if this dog is actually seeing ghosts? That is the long and short of it, without treading into, possible spoiler territory. When we get into story, I can give you a bit more, but let's do our overall thoughts.
Yeah, I was going to say, start with yours, because I gave like a little, real short little out of theater about this one, so.
Cool,
yeah.
all right. So, yeah, my thoughts are thus. So, this movie is like an hour and 12 minutes. It's not a very long movie, which I think is the smart way to go with this film. Overall, I was hoping for a lot with this, and while it was made with high skill, I think definitely the dog is the best actor of the entire movie. I feel like, there's a lot of people that are pointing out the audio issues. It definitely felt like the owner's audio was done in a booth as opposed to on location.
Yeah, a lot of ADR and
a lot of ADR stuff, but it's fine because they shot it like a Charlie Brown cartoon where the adults are never fully really shown till a particular point anyway. And I even though it was an hour and 12 minutes, it still felt long. And unfortunately, while it was a very well made movie, there was still nothing that we hadn't seen before. The only difference is it's from the perspective of a dog, and thus it's shot from the level of a dog, which is interesting and clever and smart. The cinematographer was also the goodest of boys. But I will say that, I was having a hard time buying into everything in any sort of real way, because it's, all the scares are things that we'd seen done before and possibly better in, the Conjuring movies, any sort of supernatural horror film. It's just done from the perspective of the dog, which I liked. However, it wasn't unique enough. Now, that being said, what I need to say in addition to that, because I cannot deny this, the last 10 to 15 minutes are what sold this movie for me in the biggest of ways. Yeah. We're not going to give away whether, what happens. Obviously, the big question is, does the dog live or die? We're not going to give that away. The director himself put out a statement and put out a website. If you're really curious, you can go and find out yourself before seeing the movie.
There are some people who love having that spoiled beforehand.
Right.
Even if there's no other detail of the movie, they need to know what happens with the animal.
The thing is, that's
trigger warning stuff.
As it turns out, that's the wrong question to ask.
Yeah.
and what the last 10 to 15 minutes, yes, utterly gut punchy.
There's something that the owner says to him.
Not just that, but the way, like, the last shot, I was like, please let this be the last shot. Please cut to black. Please cut to black. And then it cuts to black. I was like, oh, that's perfect. It's just a perfect ending. And it's emotional. It's sad. It's impactful. And I didn't care nearly as much about that first hour while in it as I did after watching the last 15 minutes. Yeah. The last 15 minutes made me care so much more about that first hour, and I will revisit the film with the context of the last 15 minutes now, going into the first hour.
It's going to end up on Shudder soon.
But that last 15 minutes we've talked about this before, and it's happened mostly when we have done reviews, because it's mostly with festival pieces, which this was actually.
Yeah, this was at
Fantastic Fest, which we weren't able to. It just wasn't offered remotely.
Yeah, in person
but
only.
There's been a few movies where when the credits roll, I have to just sit and not process, but like if I stand up, I'm going to start bawling. Yeah. You know what I mean? And this was the third one of those that I remember. The first one was I'll Take Your Dead. The second one was From Black. And then this one had that same feeling for me. And
even something further back, like Bertino's The Monster, had a similar effect on me,
absolutely,
too.
Absolutely. But I processed that more a little bit before the end. This one, I just had to sit.
True.
Because the end just, like, I was like, I didn't, for whatever reason, with the movie playing out as it was, I didn't see the way, like, I saw the end coming, but I didn't see the way they executed the end coming.
Yeah.
And I thought it was phenomenal. And the movie went from like a 5 to like an 8.5 for me, just based on the ending alone. Yeah. I know that's a very long overall thoughts, but I think that's the most important thing to talk about. That's the most important thing I wanted to say about this movie.
Yeah, and I saw this the weekend that it came out after, and it was kind of one of those burden of expectation situations because it had so much buzz coming out of the festival circuit.
Too,
you know?
right? You hope something so unique is going to be done well.
Yeah, and I was really, really high on it when I walked out of the theater, and I think I've like kind of backpedaled just the tiniest bit, not based on the emotional impact, but based on taking into consideration some of the things that you mentioned and the fact that the scares are a little more on the generic side, and it's not really doing a lot as far as lore or anything goes that we haven't seen before. It's a little more mid to lower tier Blumhouse sort of fare in that regard. But Indy and the performance they got out of this dog is where, as far as overall impressions go. So I believe Ben, I'm trying, something Berg. In any event, the guy who, the owner of the dog, I believe, is also the one who plays the owner in the film, and he's also the writer and the director. And after the film, for anybody who sticks around in the theater, and I'm sure they'll probably have this once it hits Shudder as well, they do a little behind-the-scenes stuff, and, you know, you meet the director, you meet Indy, you meet, and you hear a little bit about the process of how it took them 3 years to make this thing, man.
3+ years,
you know, because you can only shoot your dog and so much, and it's probably why the runtime was a lot shorter too, you know, because there's only so much you can get together.
Yeah,
with a dog
apparently
that's not professionally trained.
They spent an entire day getting 1 8-second shot for the movie. Yeah.
So I mean, the process alone is what really impresses me so much about this film. I think in a lot of ways, and just the fact that the dog's not professionally trained, and the fact that it was just the owners, and the diligence and persistence and all of that about it,
which pays off.
It does really. And so, yeah, I mean, the generic stuff aside, the heart of this film is the, you know, just love of a man and his pet, and the undying love, even when, as we, I guess, segue into story a little bit. So the owner of Indy, who's Todd is his name, if I remember correctly.
Remember.
In any event, he decides to relocate to the very remote home that has been in his family for generations.
Old family home, right?
Yep, his grandfather had just recently passed away. His grandfather had been living there alone with his dog for a number of years, not really having a lot of contact with family members, and so I'll just continue calling him Todd for that sake. But Todd and Indy, they decide to move in here, and he has a sister who is very concerned about his health and just how he's doing, both mentally and physically. It's one of the kind of reasons for the relocation anyway. And so when they get to said house, as you see in the trailers, there is a presence in the home that Indy is much more perceptive to. But Todd kind of gets a vibe that there's some spooky shit going on there too, because it's just an old family house, and you're going to have just those, I don't know, old demon spirits, you know,
Well,
all
and-
that family
and
lineage. And
Denial is
whatever.
more than a river in Egypt.
Truly. True. Yeah, very much so. And really the only other human character that we see is there's a neighbor that there's some interaction with who's out hunting that they meet at one particular point, and he's going around in this
ghillie
crazy,
suit.
like full-on camo, crazy
Ghillie suit,
looking
baby!
guard, man. You know, and he does warn about some of the wild foxes, I think, is one thing. So he's got traps out for the foxes, warns Indy to, you know, just to, be as careful as possible.
Right.
Don't want to get caught in one of those and everything. But there's really not much else going on. I mean, you know, the owner's health, Indy being concerned about how maybe the health is being even further affected by this presence in the home, and then it's just trying to figure out, you know, the survival of dog, survival of owner, and that's, you know, about all that we can say without spoiling stuff. So yeah, pretty simple in that regard.
Yeah, it is very simple, and the problem, the pitfall that it was falling into is ultimately your protagonist is a dog that can't do shit about anything. So like all you can do is watch things sort of torment the dog, and it's not, you know, it's not like there's a lot of tension buildup, but there's little by way of breaks, I suppose, right? So usually paranormal movies and horror movies in general will have the comedic character or like those comedic beats
Something that
to
gives levity,
tension
breathing room,
release, right? Tension release from the audience. Because it's a dog that you're following the whole time, there's no moments like the tension release moments have to be like manufactured comedic moments as opposed to stuff you can do with dialogue very easily. And so like the tension is ratcheted up, and then the moment happens, and then you're just like, that's it? Okay. All right. You know, so it's a weird thing. Like, this is the first movie of its kind, right? So, like, it's going to fall into entirely different pitfalls that, you know, normal horror movies don't have to account for, that they didn't know were going to be pitfalls. And so, like, bottom line, what I need to say regarding story and the movie overall is that I very much applaud what they've done here.
Indeed.
It is fantastic. It's going to go down in horror history for a number of reasons. You know, not the least of which is the lead actor and the way in which the movie was made.
We named the dog Indiana.
So, like, you know, it's gonna be, you know, it's gonna have its place in history no matter what. But that doesn't mean we can't point out, you know, that there are some shortcomings. And so, you know, the story is kind of one of them up until the end. And, you know, the story at the end made me care about everything else. So
yeah, because the backstory with the grandfather, which we get little bits of here and there, like he has a video will that he's made where
and the grandfather's dog.
Yeah, exactly, and the grandfather's dog, and also wondering if the dog that Indy is seeing, like the nature of it, and like spiritual or like whatever else and stuff. So, but yet they still sold some emotional beats, you know, pretty significantly. I think, you know, just the little bits of dialogue between owner and Indy, and then even the scenes where they don't necessarily reveal whether it's just health and frustration or possession or whatever, and I like the fact that they kept some of that stuff vague, where he like leaves the dog outside and chains it up in the rain, and you know, that's what kind of triggers
Something's
stuff
off,
for animal
right?
lovers.
You know, something's off.
Yeah, something is definitely off. Yeah, there's
So-
like room in the basement, you know, where there's like blood dried up, and just like different clues and hints about just the last days that this grandfather had, and the grandfather actually does reveal a little bit more lore about how there's been many family members, and you know, over the generations that have passed in this home, and so is this owner next, and the whole wonder if trying to figure out what the hell is going to happen, and can Indy save his, you know, and save himself and his owner, I guess. So,
Yeah, and we've already discussed, you know, quite at length a lot about the movie, so we can kind of breeze through some of the rest of it here. Again, I feel like the movie was made phenomenally. I feel like the production design was well done. I feel like the cinematography was of particular interest to me because again, you
Some
have
of the
to
tracking
frame.
shots with the dog.
Yeah,
too,
you have
are-
to frame everything. Again, it's from the dog's perspective, so everything is framed lower, but the shots that the dog is in are like, this was one of those films that was a prime example of every frame in your film should be able to be taken as a still photograph and work. And I feel like this movie had
promotional
that
purposes,
for
yeah.
sure. Well, not just for promotional purposes. Like every frame is supposed to be good enough to be a picture in its own piece of art.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing.
It is
and I
moving
feel like
pictures, right?
This
I mean,
is
yeah.
an example where I think that they accomplished that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think production design and cinematography. So the filmmaking was definitely, again, if it's the dude's first movie, you know, much
feature.
credit to him.
Yeah,
Much
yeah.
credit to him. So I feel like all of that was you know, above par.
Yeah,
Or
and
excuse me, below par. How do you why am I going with a golf metaphor anyway? But whatever the good version, like,
Sure.
you know what I mean?
I'm not a golf guy either. Yeah, but you know, to piggyback on something you mentioned during your overall thoughts, I love the deliberate decision to have the face of the owner skewed, to not see, because it's all from the dog's perspective and everything, and so there is stuff in shadow, there is deliberate framing choices of the shots to just see from the back of the head or to see just on a skewed viewpoint. We don't actually see the face of the owner till like very late in the movie, and yet the same goes for the neighbor that we mentioned that they encounter at one particular point who's going around in the camo, and even when there's a certain doctor's visit that happens, you know, I mean, you don't see anybody. It's all from the perspective of the dog, so that was very deliberate and yet just, I mean, orchestrated very well. And yeah, I mean, just props to that. I think he shot it himself too, you know, Ben, the director. So yeah, and then they had some people come on, you know, in the post production process to aid with the color correction and various other things.
And
to
digital
make
effects.
It,
There were some
exactly,
digital
make it look
effects.
a little more pro. So
Yeah, so let's talk about the effects. I feel like, you know, for the most part, they were done pretty cool and interestingly, and like, you know, sort of the spirits at the edge of reality kind of look. I feel like they did a lot of that.
Kind of, yeah.
Right. I feel like they did a lot of that pretty well, but not everything was perfect. But overall, I feel like they did a good job effects-wise.
Yeah, and that's where just the look and the design is where I was thinking of, like, outtakes from the Conjuring universe and things like that, you know, as far as like when you start to get these tints of otherworldly presence that may or may not be there, you know, is it just, you know, it's, I hate to use the term derivative, it just looked, you know, similar to things that I've seen in other horror films over the years, but, you know, the star is the dog, and just having a great set design, too, of this, from, like, the, like, creepy basement where some stuff goes on to even the design of this home, the, you know, beautiful place where they got to shoot, the isolation aspect of the woods and everything too, which is really great. So, I mean, yeah, from like everything from a technical standpoint, I feel like was done very, very well.
I mean, I think that's as much as we need to discuss.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, I do want to mention the score. I liked the score.
Yeah.
As I was leaving the theater, even I was noting the score as I was walking out, because well, I won't say what was on screen as I was walking out, but it was still a darker score for even what was on screen. But I dug the score that I remember. I thought that was good.
Yeah, it is relatively minimalist at times, but then when it does actually, you know, take a bite into the film of sorts, to use a pun. But yeah, but I mean, overall, it's, don't go in expecting the world, is what I would say. You know, just expect a unique concept. Some people have called it gimmicky. I hate that term, and you know,
It's a gimmick, but
to a degree, I suppose. Yeah,
but that doesn't mean it's bad. You know?
And it's also a PG-13 horror movie, so don't expect something that's gonna. It's more like just mood and sort of eeriness, as opposed to like full-on carnage, candy, crazy or anything. So. No.
So yeah, I think that's going to do it for our non-spoiler thoughts on Good Boy. If you've seen it, let us know what your thoughts are in the comments down below, or even if you haven't, let us know what your hopes or expectations are in the comments down below. Thank you guys very much for watching, especially if you've watched all the way up to this point. Thank you to all of our patrons for supporting the channel the way that you do. Until next time, though, I've been Cecil Laird.
And gracias, I've been Jaime Fuego.
And remember, stay scared.